Many times people are asked, hey, you got a layout? And they say, nah, I don't have the time or money or space for one. So they end up sitting on the couch and reading or watching videos, but other model editors with their layouts, and solitarily wishing that they could have something. But instead of thinking of woulda, shoulda, coulda, there is a solution for that, and that is to build a T-Trak module. Unlike other modular systems, T-Trak is different in a number of ways, which help simplify the overhead for the average modeler. First, the benchwork for a T-Trak layout are these folding banquet tables, typically in 4-foot or 6-foot lengths. These pair of tables here are 8-foot, while this modules here are sitting on a 6-foot banquet table this way. In addition, I have got some of these commonly available skirts that you see that are used for hotels and banquet halls. Obviously, disguises the stuff underneath the table, as well as instantly gives some layout type of skirting. Instead of using clamps, the modules are physically just hooked together using the Kato Unitrack system and their patented unijoiners. And these will generally just snap together with a minimal amount of gap between the modules. The modules, regardless of if you build it from a kit or like this one, which is a home-built module, typically they'll be using a T-nut or some sort of threaded insert and a lag bolt for a leveling foot, and this allows to takes some of the variance out of top of the banquet tables, which some of them can be quite uneven. The full standards for T-Trak are available at ntrak.org under the N-Rail banner. It used to be N-Trak, but now it's called N-Rail, mainly to accommodate standards such as T-Trak. And I will be including a direct link for the ntrak.org in the description of this video. While this is N scale, there are T-Trak standards for other gauges, mainly for HO and Z, mainly because Kato does make HO Unitrack, and Z scale, there's the Tomix system, Tomix. They make a similar product with latching type track for Z scale. So you don't necessarily have to be stuck with just doing N. The typical module, they're all in multiples of 310 millimeters, which is the width, the length of a Kato 248 millimeter piece attached to a Kato piece of 62 millimeter. That is the length of a typical single standard module. So a triple could have three long pieces and 3 short pieces equivalently to cover the same distance. Modules are available in multiple sizes. As I mentioned with a single, this is a triple. There is a double available, which is approximately 2 feet or about 1 feet by 2 feet approximately. There are some manufacturers offer a quad or a quintuple modules being approximately 4 or 5 feet. There are corner modules, which are basically a 90-degree corner with the typical 282 350 millimeter, which is about 11 or 12 3/8 inch radii. There are some variations on larger corners as well, so you can use those higher 13, 14 inch radius corners. There are modules like this, which are a end cap, which is basically a 180-degree turn for the whole end. It's just one piece. So that can be handy, especially if you want to be one contiguous scene. There are junction type modules where this is based off of, which allow a track, a spur, like you could have a one loop of running this way, and then have a one going the other way, and having a outside line go around, and you have a interior loop over here and an interior loop over here on legs, so you can join up. So you don't necessarily have to be sticking with just a simple oval. You can make L-shaped layouts, T-shaped layouts, any kind of pattern that you wish. Now, of course, you don't need to build an entire layout. If you want to build a whole overworth, you can fit on one of those aforementioned banquet tables. But all you really need is one module. If you want to participate in a show, you can put in a module, or if you've got a group of friends, you could each build some modules, and we'll bring it together and show it at your local show. And again, there is a lot of flexibility. This module right in front we're looking at, this triple, this is from CMR Products, and we'll have a link to them in the description. They make perfectly acceptable modules, though some of their larger modules, like these triples, might need some internal bracing in there. So only really caveat with these. Generally, if you're building module kits, you really only need a couple things. You really don't need tools that kind of, quote, snaps together in a sense. All you really need is a good white glue, and I prefer something like Type Bond 2. This kind of glue I find is superior to Elmer's carpenter glue, and it will the wood will fail before the joint does. And then, in addition, all you need then is also some blue or green painter's tape. This will help hold, and you'll want to do is use that to hold these sections together while they dry. Some module kits, like these CMR ones, they're a little bit somewhat loose on where the tabs are, so they will not hold together without tape. The first modules I built, the manufacturer's no longer in business. They actually fit tightly. You had to kind of pound it with a hammer, but you didn't need tape. So, but typically tape is going to be necessary. So again, if you don't have any tools, these are easy to put together. You can easily put these together in an apartment, for instance, like that, so you don't have to worry about noise. Another good module kit manufacturer is a Klondike, and that actually spelled KLAWNDYKE.com. So it's not like the ice cream bar. I'll include a description in there. And there, I've not used their modules, but they have a lot of good reviews across the number noted on some other YouTube channels, and all good reviews overall. Both CMR and Klondikes offer a full range of modules. You can get your singles, doubles, triples, the junction modules, the end caps, skyboards. If you'd like, there are modules that are kind of reverse, that allow to put like where the surface actually is down here, so you can put like a bridge in. There are modules that can do kind of more fancy junctions, inside corners. There's a whole choice. Typically for module kits, I found current prices are about $25 for a standard single module or corner, and and the price goes up easily into potentially $60-70 for a quad or a super fancy type module. Now these modules are fully customizable. You're again not held to following the standard modules. You can build. You don't have to stick with the module kits. You can build your own, such as this end cap. This end cap is just made of a piece of scrap plywood, and I had some wood left over from a cabinet project. I added some 2x2s for some leg blocks, T-nuts, and the lag bolts, and I created this end cap module that's used for, again, this case it's used for an off scene access lines to staging, for instance. So here's a module that you can build. You don't have to follow. Could have used an end cap module, but you have stuff laying around. So I've seen people using the pink or the blue insulation foam. You can use scrap plywood leftovers. People have used foam core, cardboard. There's beadboard. There's a number of choices that you can. The important thing is, as long as you're following the standards on the T-Trak.org website. So a lot of that, again, is making sure you have the appropriate spacing and overhang of your track. And then I have put a recent video up on the tool of how to make sure that, to assure of that, regardless of how you build your models from kits or from home built. And that will be at the end of this. Will be attached at the end of this video. And then also, well, for the appropriate lag bolts, I've got the height and the basic basic dimensions. You don't necessarily have to stick with a 12-inch depth. These are, for instance, these two modules are really a customized set of a triple and a double, technically kit bashed together. They are a deep double and a deep triple, kit bashed together into a quintuple unit. One thing, if you are going to build a custom module or have like a quintuple, for instance, you're going to have, it's like an oval, you're going to have another quintuple on the other side of the loop, or enough straight modules, for instance, to accommodate it. You also, theoretically, if you have the second module, you don't necessarily even have to stick with the standard dimensions of a single, what is considered to be a single, double, triple, etc. You could have some weird one that's maybe a one scene made of multiple modules, or something that has an odd dimension, like 3.5 feet. That can work as long as you have a module on the other side of the loop somewhere that's the same at the same dimension, that you won't necessarily, so there won't be a gap in the loop or in the layout somewhere. Customizing doesn't necessarily stop with the overall dimensions of the modules. We can also decide, for instance, you don't necessarily have to use T-Trak over the entire module. The only parts where T-Trak matters is actually at the interfaces. So Kato does sell small connector pieces, which you can use. You don't have to use big full sections. You just maybe have to shim using non-regular track. You'll probably have to shim the track approaching these unijoiner pieces. But the example was this triple module is using Payco code 55 instead, but it's using T-Trak at all of the interface points. This is perfectly acceptable. The advantage of using non-T-Trak pieces, this allows different type of geometry, tracks closer together, different switch types, things that you could not do this kind of setup to the same degree with Kato T-Trak. So if you can use the code, as I said, I've used Payco code 55, Payco code 80, microengineering code 55, Atlas code 80 are all acceptable track systems if you don't want to use a T-Trak. The only system that is not allowed is Atlas code 55, because Atlas code 55, the spike heads on Atlas code 55 are a little too large, causing potentially larger flanger, older N-scale equipment to bounce over the top of the tire. You hear this bip, 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 bip sound. So that is not allowed on T-Trak's modules anywhere. So if you're enjoying this video up to this point, please give me a like, and please consider subscribing. It really helps the channel, and as we're working towards our goal of 1,000 subscribers. And if you are already subscribed, please put your notifications on. YouTube tells me only about 12% of subscribers have the full notifications on. I really want you to be able to be notified when I release new content. Whether you're using a module kit, or doing a home built module like this end cap, it doesn't necessarily have to be super pretty. It's mainly just to be, ideally it is just to be functional. However, I will note that if you're using to make things that black paint along exposed edges of fascia boards for these modules really does go a long way to making it looking pretty nice, and also with an addition of a skyboard, and that's similar to kind of the effect you would get on a larger non-modular layout. And then when you get into like scenery and detailing, I mean, that is really up to you. And keep in mind, you're only really dealing with maybe as small as like a square foot, or maybe something like this, which is like about for this end cap, for instance, we're looking at here. This is basically about 2 square feet or 3 square feet with a triple. It's easy enough to get in here and do more detailing than you would maybe if you had you're not trying to detail out a whole 4x8 piece of plywood, or a hollow core door, or a whole room worth of layout, or a basement, for instance. You can build it one lay at a time. You could have many modules, but you don't necessarily have to be stuck with figuring out get overwhelmed with details. You can take these modules. I can take this one. I've lifted this one. This sits back underneath one of another layout, so I brought it out for easier viewing. But you can take this. I could take this to another room in the house, set up a work table, and work on it there. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the garage where I have the layout. Anything you can do on a full modular layout, you can do on these. If you want, like the substation here, this is a built-up kit from built-up model from Woodland Scenics, or I could kit bash kits together, which you see on the rest of these modules, or even scratch build a building. That doesn't really matter. You know, here I am going in and painting and weathering the track, painting the ties. I will ballast the T-Trak. You can do that. You don't have to do that. Some folks you just use the standard T-Trak. It already has ballast profile and ties. You don't need to do that if you don't want to. If you don't feel comfortable with it. There's absolutely nothing about T-Traks that forces you really to do anything beyond your skill set. Now these modules themselves are portable. And that's one of the obvious reasons. A double module like this, this one here will easily fit on a back seat, or in a car trunk, back of your SUV. There's some folks that have taken, if they have a simple module, maybe even a more of a simple module, maybe a corner or a single, and without a skyboard, you could theoretically fit in luggage if you want to take it somewhere that way. You could have a quad built from a kit, and it could actually you could build it, especially if you use non-standard track for between the interfaces. You could build your own switching layout that could sit on top of a bookshelf, and then it's ready to go. And you can still pick it up and take it to a show. Now, what can you do with modules? If you're dealing with like singles or corners or end caps, it's pretty much going to be the main line through the scene. There's not really ability here for switches off the mainline tracks. However, it doesn't stop you from doing a custom type module like this, where I have actually added extra tracks, extra spurs that come off of adjacent straight module right in front that extend onto the corner module with the T-Trak unijoiners that allow snapping the modules together. Like you can easily add, you can actually fill in some of this space, in a different manner than if you're just using the standard track arrangements. If you're dealing with like a double, if you that is room enough to put like a short or a short spur, for instance. Though if you do want to use T-Trak and you really want something longer, maybe like a short run around track or some more different spurs, you'll need to go to the triple. Here's an example. This is the module and the modules that hooks into the end cap module just shown you on one side, but here we do have a mainline crossover. There's a switchback to another set of spurs, and the spur on one side runs the spurs tracks in the front run off the edge of the layout to the bit to form a couple of industry spurs, and one off here on the underside as well. You have like a home layout like mine, you can do weird things that you can't really, modules like this particular one can't really be brought to a show. This is a junction module, and in reality, a true junction module, instead of this track ending at the dock, you'd have another curved track that goes back this way that forms the part of an interior loop for this particular leg of a T, for instance. But here I actually took that out, truncated it, and made it a spur. But I still have the outside track being my main line, and then this track in the back is since functions as it's part of a continuous run loop on the top end of the T. But in my layout operations, this will function as its combination, icing dock lead, yard lead, staging track lead. Doesn't necessarily have to be run as a continuous run track. However, even with all the customizations, like this triple module here, there's nothing wrong. This triple module could be taken out of this layout and taken to a show. So the world of modular model railroading is open to you. All you have to do, you don't really necessarily have any excuses anymore. Stop. The world of stop. The world of modular model railroading is open to you, and you really don't necessarily have much excuses anymore. So all you have to do is get building, and we'll see you in the next one.